What's happening, y'all? It's Ms. Mag here, joined by Dominic, coach of the Chicago Sim Race. Say hello.
What's up?
And we are bringing you Week 0 power rankings for the Lord Helix Draft League. They're running their low tier / leftovers league for their first season in a long while, certainly this generation. And there are 16 teams that we're going to go over, plus some tierings that we did at the end. And yeah, do you have anything you want to say before we get started?
Now let's just get into it.
Alright, cool. So, I will say that these teams were in draft order. So, the first team was the first pick, all the way down to the last. And there is a Terra Captain mechanic that you will see when we get into the first slide, which just happens to be my team. So, I got first pick in this draft as coach of the main event. So as you can see, there are 3 Terra Captains in the orange box below. Those are the only Pokemon that are permitted to Terrastalize, and they are also limited to Terrastalizing to only 2 chosen types. Now you can change these types at any time during the season, as long as you have a transaction to do so, but these are the only ones I can use Terra on. Everything else has to be stuck with its original typing. Since this is my team, Dom, why don't you start us off by talking about it?
Well, I think you just start off by saying what your little theme was.
Oh yes, how could I forget? For those of you who may not have watched my team review video, I decided to go with a theme draft. So all of the Pokemon I drafted either share their height with Miss Magius, which is like my favorite Pokemon, or Misdreavus. Alright, take it away.
Alright, so I think this team it's interesting, obviously, because you were limited to such a small pool of Pokemon, but also some of the Pokemon on that list are they can do a lot, but it seems like the Pokemon there's not great synergy between the Pokemon because it was such a small list. Like Gastrodon isn't really protecting much. Maybe getting the sand set up for Volbeat, but like just stuff like that, and like the Raichu, although it's good on its own, like it has all the same moveset as regular Raichu, like with all the support, but it's not getting that Surge or boost from anything. Like I think this team can be annoying with Volbeat, obviously, like encoring and taunting with Prankster, and Scovillain can do some fun little gimmicks. But when I look at this team, what I see the only real big threat I see is like the Flareon, right? With like the Toxic Orb or something, or like maybe a Flare or Flamorb if you plan on tearing it immediately. With next like Volbeat setting up Tailwind for something like that. So I think although that's on its own one scary aspect about the team, there's just not that many options for it. Like I don't know, Gumshoos maybe against like a Trick Room team, like it could put in some work, or if you can set up Trick Room somehow with like I don't know, Miss Magius, I guess. I don't know if Raichu gets Trick Room, it might, but I'm not sure. And like Toxapex ain't doing shit, and then I don't know. I think like you're kind of stuck bringing the same like 6 every week, and well, yeah. I mean, you can and then it's just like of those 6, it's not the most threatening because they don't work the best together.
Those are all fair points. Yeah, I mean, choosing to do a theme draft in an already limited draft pool was a fun challenge, and it did end up in this sort of conglomeration of a team. I will agree, there isn't some wide overall team synergies. I will say that there's some hidden joy to how some of these Pokemon do actually work together that is not obvious, and I think I will have to maximize that advantage to be really successful. Because like you said, looking at this team, there aren't a ton of obviously threatening Pokemon outside of maybe Flareon and Gumshoos if you care about adaptability, the only adaptability Pokemon for this format at that. Yeah, Gastrodon's not exactly doing a lot with Storm Drain, but like it has other abilities, and just being a water ground, like being a typing that has limited weaknesses in this format where only 3 Pokemon per team can Terra, I think is also just valuable. In addition to it just being kind of a pain to remove because of how bulky it is. And yes, you did point out Volbeat with Prankster is just going to be a bit of a nuisance, and Scovillain with Booty will also be very fun, as well as like throwing on the little Zora with Illusion, just so it kind of makes you kind of second guess your choices even more. I like it. It has a lot of fun mons that I have both used and not used on it. I've used Toxapex and Mismagius a fair bit this gen, probably like twice at least. So I'm excited to see what I can do with it.
Yeah, I definitely think if you team build creatively, there's like some stuff like that might not be very obvious to me. Like just in the past, I haven't used Mismagius, but in tag team my partner did at one point, and it can do a lot. Like, and then Scovillain can be moody or it can use spicy extract. Like it can definitely do things. I just don't see. I mean, it'll be up to you to show people we can do this team because it's not inherently very obvious.
And those are just the kind of teams I like. But I will say our next team is definitely one that has more obvious modes to it. Let's take a look at the Snickers bar. I'll just jump in and say the most obvious thing this team will do to you is wreck you with snow, because Beartic and Ninetales are quite fearsome S tiers for this format when Beartic has a very high attack stat. On top of that, there is a little bit of the Primate mode with Rage Fist and the 2 Cannon, and then he just kind of rounds it out with like really solid support mods with like Toadscruel, Bruxish, Procalor. Berserker with Terra Steel is also really strong. So I really like this team. I think it's fairly well balanced. Several of the mons are not like the highest in terms of stat lines, but I mean it is low tier for format. What do you think?
I think this team is pretty good. I know with our tier list that we made, I ranked a lot. Like you ranked it very highly, and I ranked it not as highly. But I still think it's very good. It's scary on the surface, I think, with because it can do. Just Ninetales is really good for this format. Like I don't know, that's a Pokemon when you think low tier format. That was probably on the tier list. The best Pokemon standard play that was on the tier list was Ninetales Alola. It, I mean that obviously tells that it can really do something. It can just the faster roar veils and just setting up the snow and getting the defense boost. It's like you wouldn't think it, but based on its stats, but it can be pretty bulky with the new snow buff. And then there's Primate, which is kind of scary too because Beartic gets the Frost Breath, so you can do a little Anger Point, Primate stuff. It's scary for sure. And then Primate gets like Drain Punch to recover HP, and just it can be annoying, annoyingly bulky with Eviolite and Drain Punch. And I think the rest of the team is well rounded out, except I don't know about like. I think there's another team where it's, and this is like a lot of the teams in this format, which is just a problem with low tiers, that the shit Pokemon are really shit. So then you usually have 6 or 7 that you bring every week. Like this team is definitely. I don't know about Toucan. I don't think it's going to be doing much. I think you're bringing those 3 up top there, the Berserker, which was like not even Steel Spear, just like Tough Claws, Terra Steel is doing a lot of damage. Like that was, I definitely did want Berserker for my team, and so I understand that. I understand how strong it can be, just especially in this format where Sabin Assault Vest on it, Fake Out, Iron Head, U-turn, like close combat. It's just clicking buttons, doing a lot of damage in this format. What else? I think it's those 4 usually, and then maybe both pre-evolutions or like a pre-evolution in Bruxish or maybe Mightyena. Although Mightyena's stats are like atrocious. It gets Intimidate, but once it's on the field, it's really not doing anything. So yeah, it's usually just bring in Bruxish and one of the little guys. So it's like I just think it get a little bit predictable, especially because the really scary modes like with the Ninetales and the Primate, like one move like Psychic Fangs or Haze just kind of defeats it. So I think if you prep well, this team is not very threatening, but it definitely can be if um if you don't have the tools to deal with it.
Say that after taking, I guess, a second look at this team, I would necessarily change my ranking because I still think the top 6 or so are still fundamentally very strong for this format. But I did realize that now that I'm seeing it again, there is a very, very striking weakness to fire type on this team, and that's not just like because it's a snow team. It just happens to be like all of the Terra captains are all weak to fire. Granted, they can all Terra out of being weak to fire, but it's just something interesting I noticed when like you're considering like you only get to Terra one mon, so that means like if you happen to want to bring Snow, Berserker, and like Toad Scroll, like you're kind of in a bind whenever you want to bring Snow. And I would say usually most coaches opt to bring 2 of their 3 Terra captains on a weekly basis just so that there's some variety. But I still think like the team's modes that I can see is it's scary, definitely worth looking at. The fact that you even admitted that you wanted the Berserker down here at the bottom for your team is already telling enough. But let's talk about your team, because your team is next.
What do you think about it? I mean,
Let's
I'm not gonna talk
see.
about my own team.
I do, I like the pledge mode. I'm a little bit more familiar with having seen you like draft something similar in a different league, but I do like the combination of Delphox and your 2 S tiers. Samurai, they almost cover each other like nearly perfectly on type in terms of like type cores as well. So that's pretty nice, and I think you like supported their sort of offense with like some really good support Pokemon. I think Ramambi is a fantastic pick for this format. Shield Dust just being a built-in covert cloak, it's already super fast. You get like Tailwind, a whole bunch of debuffing moves. I mean, yeah, sure, you can't really do much against like Clear Amulets and other covert cloaks, but you can do like trick stuff. I think it's great. Also really like the Hisuian Sneasel pick as a good Eviolite user that doesn't need to have Eviolite because it has a, I would say, moderately decent attack stat and access to like really high powered moves. So yeah, this is a pretty solid team. I think the only thing on the team I didn't really understand was the Oink pick, but I guess it's because I thought you were gonna go Oink female, because I feel like traditionally that's what most people go for when they actually pick it. But maybe you can speak around that.
Yeah. First of all, I picked Oinkflone male because I thought it does have a higher defense stat and a higher attack stat. Female has 5 more HP and like one is, I think male has 5 more defense and 10 more attack. Female has 5 more HP and 10 more special defense, and like 10 less the other 2. So I picked male because I assume like if I want to do something like Stuffed Cheeks, or is that the move that like the double defense your berry, like with body press, like that's
Stuffed Cheeks.
Better defense is a little better. I also just like having the option for Lingering Aroma, just because like I mean the C tiers like in this format were pretty bad. So I thought like if I get a little bit of value out of Oink, which I think I will be able to, like it gets some like pretty decent support options and gets a lot of coverage. So if there's like any 4 times weaknesses, it's probably gonna hit them for 4x damage. But Lingering Aroma just like makes things want to switch out, which is nice for like spikes, and just overall just like the team is, it's like it's just balance and balance. If you can get them to play your game of switching around a bunch and just being able to switch into hits well, and they're not able to switch into hits well, I think you're doing pretty fine. I think also my team does run into the same issue of how like there's like 6 or 7 like good mons. Like the entire top line except for Ditto is probably like coming most weeks, and then Delphox and Minior have good plans for. There's those 7, but I think those 7, because it's balanced, it's like less predictable, and it's like each Pokemon can do different sets by different weeks. Like I think it seems more than just 6 or 7 Pokemon because of the variety they can each run.
That is true. That is a perk of the balanced playstyle, and I would say most of those mons you just named can run a lot of different sets and items, and then you can kind of shuffle in your tech choices, like I'm sure there's probably a week where the little Cuffent Terra Captain will actually prove to be pretty decent. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that, but we'll see. I hope for it, but 80 attack, like the sheer force is the only thing, but like it's struggling. But yeah,
Listen, I hope for it too. I was a little excited to see it drafted. Never really gotten around to see what that mon can ever do, so. But let's move on to team number 4, which is the Sunny Shore Star Raptors. Why don't you take the lead on this one?
yeah, sure. I think when we were in the draft, this team scared me a lot. Their first pick was the Ninetales and the Leafeon and the Camerupt. I'm like, ah, shit, that's a very scary like Sun core, especially because their two like abusers are Terra captains, and they picked him on top. I'm like, oh, that was a snipe, and it was also really scary just because like just you already have this really good offensive core, and then like the best. So I would say like probably the best support mon in the entire, not the best support mon, but the best like intimidate, kind of like intimidate, fake out, like that kind of thing on the tier list. Just him on top. I'm like, oh, it's really scary. And then each pick after that, I'm like, they really just like fumbled. I don't know. I think, I think none of the other picks really that like Zebstrika, Avalugg, Matang, Zoro. Obviously, like I don't think any of them are doing anything. Honchko's like okay, but it's really frail and it's not fast enough to make use of like its attacking capabilities. And Weirder, I think Weirder was a good pick, but other than Weirder, after like the first 4, it kind of went downhill for them. And that's why I just something about this team, it just doesn't feel complete to me. And although Hammer and Trick Room and Sun, like Standing Eruption, Terrifier is like scary for sure. It's like because they can't do much other than that. Like it's not because it's a draft. I don't know. It just doesn't feel complete. And I feel like teams are gonna be able to prep for this team very easily.
That's a fair point. First I have to say about this team is curse you, Toby, for sniping my Honchkrow, because it was one of the few mons that I actually wanted on my team. Due to my limited theme draft, it was like one of the only dark types I was even eligible to draft. But nevertheless, I guess I would probably prefer that Scoville didn't end up on this team, even if you wanted it there. But that's neither here nor there. I kind of agree with you in some ways that the team is missing a little something. Like I really would love to see like a bulky water type on this team. Just because, like, yeah, you have Sun, and Leafeon can do a lot of damage into water types in general. But I feel like if a coach can kind of play well around, like, getting rid of Leafeon and Zebstrika through other pressures, like their own fire types or what have you, bulky waters might give, like, the dominant modes here a lot of trouble. Especially if they're bulky enough to take hits from, like, Avalugg. And no offense to Matang, I actually thought it was a really solid C tier pick just because it's got pretty good move pool and decent stat line for what it can do, but it's not going to really be able to like go toe to toe with like mods like Swampert necessarily. But I did like the craftsmanship in this team. I think the Sun mode out the gate was really strong. I just figured out after one point he was just building a Sunbrim team, which is pretty much what you have here with the Weirdeer and the Avalugg. But there are some weaknesses that I think can be exploited. You are very much right on that one. All right.
Also, I just want to say about the Matang, I was considering it, but like I was considering it until I looked at its stats, and it's like 75 attack. Like, I don't want to have anyone thinking it has like 90, maybe 100. Like, because Metagross is very strong, but it's just not. I don't know. It's just like not. It's not doing much.
Nah, I'd say Matang's like its stat line is probably like just more beneficial because like it has pretty good typing for even for an Eviolite mon, and the Eviolite giving it some extra bulk probably gets a few decently high BP moves that can make up for the fact that its attacking stats are low. Like it's a mid Evo, it's a middle evolution rather. So I wasn't expecting great things from it. Alright, let's move on to team number 5, which is the Villa Blanca Volcanoes, who also decided to do a theme draft. as you might have noticed, they decided to draft, with the exception of their Terra captains, they drafted all bug types. And I think a good chunk of people did not necessarily realize this until probably, like, I'd say halfway through. That was probably when it became more evident when you see someone picking up 5 bug types, not exactly a type that's really popular. To compensate for their Terra captains, they all picked up Terra Bug as one of their Terra captain options, and they also picked up the other Oinkalon, which I thought was kind of cool. I like the theme. I like a theme draft. Obviously, I did one myself. Bug's a tough one, especially in a format where basically all 7 of the mons that are like legitimate bug types are going to be taking the full front of their weaknesses. There is no Terra for them. There is just like resist berries and sashes. And bugs have a lot of weaknesses, quite a lot. I think he picked really strong Terra captains to compensate for a lot of those weaknesses, though. So props to him. Like thick fat on the Oinkalon with Terra Bug, or even Steel is like actually like super solid planning. Like well done there. What do you think?
I think for what he was given, the hand he was dealt, he played it pretty well. But like, dude, like when you 7 fire weaknesses, like 6 or something rock weaknesses, like, I don't know. It's just he gave himself a very restricting like theme, and so it's just the team just suffers a lot. I mean, there's definitely some scary things it can do. Like Elomise is always just annoying. I maybe think Volbeat's a little better just because it has more options, but Elomise is can definitely just like fuck you up with like if you want to protect just Encore. Pretty sure Encore's really good, especially but also with the Tailwind, especially with the Heracross. Just that's Heracross, like throwing off the sides, like close combats or Mega Horns. Just it's gonna do a lot of damage for sure next to that Tailwind. But I don't know, just got like a stab Heat Wave or like a stab Rock Slide. Like these mons are dropping.
Yeah, it's funny. I find it amusing that both of the Firefly S tier mons, the Volbeat and the Illumise, both coaches who drafted them just happened to be doing theme drafts. That was totally not planned at all. But now that I like realize, like, I picked Volbeat round 1, and this guy actually asked me why I didn't pick Illumise, because I kind of prefer it in most cases, because I actually like its aesthetic a fair bit better. Move pool wise, I'll say Volbeat probably has just the edge because it has taunt. Illumise does not get taunt. But that's a whole different debate. But yeah, now the several Rocket Fire weaknesses, I can't wait to see how they really make good use of their Terra captains to mitigate a lot of those weaknesses. I would imagine 2 or all 3 of their captains come probably like every week at minimum, just to help with
probably all 3
keeping that down. Yeah, I mean it really depends because, like, for example, like Avalok Hisui is a great Pokemon, but like it won't, like, if you have like let's just say like an Infernape, like that's still a tough sell even to bring into that matchup because like the fighting weakness just kind of destroys you. And then you could just go for fire in most cases to be kind of safe. Speaking of Infernape, oh man, I'm getting really good with these transitions. Hey look, it's Infernape. Wasn't planned at all. But this is team number 6, Supernova Jirachi, coached by Kevs. Why don't you talk us through this team?
Yeah, I like this team a lot actually. I think it has, well, I like it. I like a lot of the picks, but it's another team where I don't see the synergies aren't super obvious, but I think the mons are very solid. Like starters in this format with starters, because they have so much higher base stats than anything else. They have an edge, especially when both your S tiers are starters. Like just base stat wise, you have a pretty big edge. And then Blastoise is obvious. Blastoise is very can do a lot. It can shell smash. It can just be annoying with like yawn, fake out, like support sets and like helping hand. And then like Infernape is obviously fake out. It hits pretty hard, either physical or special, so it's very versatile in that way. and then something like Flygon as well. Like, although not the best base stats, it has a really diverse move pool, and it can it can use a lot of moves, and even something like Cacturne can put in work week by week, um, with decent base stats, and like Stab Sucker Punch in this format is kind of nice. But other than that, it's like I don't know. It's like Glaceon is all right, but without being a Terra Captain, doesn't get the coverage it needs to really use that 130 special attack effectively. I think it has 130 special attack. I don't know. It's like I don't remember which stat Glaceon's 130 is, but
Right, special attack.
okay, yeah. And then Stormery, like I don't know. It's I guess you can set up Tailwind, but I don't think you really need Tailwind when you have like you can Dragon Dance with Flygon, or you already have you can Shell Smash with Blastoise. You have Infernape that's already pretty fast. But other than that, like I still like this team a lot. I think it's just balance. It just looks tough to break, and yeah.
I also am a big fan of this team, mostly because I am a big Gen 3 fan, and there are a lot of Gen 3 mons on this team that I am used to seeing. And one of the modes of this team is the little Sandstorm mode with the baby hippo over there in Tier B, and you have a couple of the Sandvale Pokemon. Two of them are Terra Captains, mind you, as well as you have the Chimecho to run some interference and to set up Trick Room if this team wants to go slow. And then, like you said, you have the starters in the S tier for some really raw offense, as well as Glaceon, if you can put it in a position to do pretty well. Glaceon actually fairly pivotal to this team because this is another team that may struggle just a little bit against the bulky waters. Although Cacturne is a very good answer to bulky waters, especially given that it's a Terra Captain with water absorb. But I can understand having them on with like the additional like freeze dry pressure like Glaceon is very helpful for this kind of team.
Glaceon get freeze dry?
Pretty sure it does. I think it gets pretty much every like standard ice move.
Okay, I believe you. I just know freeze dry. Oh yeah, I don't get it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean I
did
could be.
That, but yeah, that's nice. No, I just looked on Showdown.
It does? Yeah, I could be wrong, but so few things get freeze dry. Yeah, they tend to make a short memory list. Alright.
Yeah.
Team number 7 is part of Komala's. We'll jump in with this one. So I like a lot of mons on this team, and I like some of like the really hidden synergies. Like I think Tinkaton is a very strong pick for this format, and they picked it round 1, which was amazing. Like you just get like a lot of mixed offense and support move pool plus like Mold Breaker is a pretty good ability, especially even in this format where there are a lot of good abilities that you can just outright ignore. And then pairing it with like Sarina and Jolteon as your S tiers is really nice. You don't have to worry about opposing priority, and you have one of the fastest mons of the format for things like speed control. Grumpig is a great low tier Trick Room setter / just defensive pain in the butt. I've used it in other leagues before. Love it. And then you got Bird up top running Interference, which is just nice because it's just a nice follow me risk one. Coughing is a little bit out of place in some cases, just because like there isn't that much in low tier that can directly abuse neutralizing gas. But I like it as an Eviolite mod on this team because it gives people pause during prep for like dealing with their abilities. And then as far as the Terra Captains go, I was very intrigued by the Swanna pick, but I think it was really a decent water option for them in the tier that they needed in. And I even think Palisade has a lot of good value in this format. I'm not super high on Houndoom. I've never been like a fan of them on outside of like aesthetically, but I'm sure this coach can put in some work with it. And Taurus is also a pretty solid pick up there in the A tier. Can't forget. What do you think?
I think initially I didn't like this team very much because it just seems, I don't know, it just seems similar to your team, I guess. There's a lot of decent assets. They're just not. They're not together. I don't see the obvious synergies, but when looking at the team more, I think it looks a lot better. Like Grumpig, I definitely underestimated at first, but you talking about it and just like um, just thinking about it more and not just brushing it off, like, it can definitely do stuff. Like, this team doesn't really have any other way to deny, like, Trick Room, so it's definitely a valuable pick. Houndoom, although being very frail, is as a Terra Captain, he can do a lot of damage. Him with Palisand, except I don't see how you're setting up any like water compaction, but you don't really have to. It's just if you just want Palisand, like for the fact that it's a nice ground type, nice Trick Room mon, then it can do that too very well. Like it's pretty hard, especially if you just invest, and like with being ground type, obviously it has a lot of types are super effective. And then at first I was like, I was just thinking because Jolteon is like very little coverage there, but it's fast and like it's frail, but you can deal decent damage. Like with the Tauros helping it out to survive, like it it can definitely live a couple hits, especially in this league, and deal pretty good damage. Serena's nice. It's just bulky and complements the Jolteon pretty well. Um, they did give it back triple axle in the DLC, so it's actually usable now. And then Tinkaton obviously is very obviously. I don't know why it was an A tier honestly in this draft with very few fairies, very few good fairies. It being an A tier was a steal, and then yeah, I already talked about Taurus and Intimidate. But yeah, I think this team can definitely do stuff that I didn't see initially. But I think this is gonna have to be another instance of just creative team building, because yeah, it's you need to the coach needs to more so find ways to get these synergies really moving, because on the surface there's not much there. But I think if Orange Soda does well with this, like builds well with this team, it can be very successful. Also, he's just a very good player in general, so I think he'll make it work pretty well.
Nah, I totally agree with that. And we love to see creative team building, that's for sure. Nothing more creative than low tier team building in some ways, because you already have just limited tools, so you really have to maximize Pokemon strengths. Like, Swanna is not a Pokemon I would say, for off the top of my head, is like a great Pokemon, but like you can maximize its strengths on this team. It will be quite a valuable asset. Alright, let's move to the halfway point in the draft, which is pick number 8, or team number 8, I should say. Yeats and the GK Jungle Beat. It's funny how the Profiting was just on the previous team, and now we have the Weezing. I'll just jump in. So, like, yeah, Weezing and Toadscroll over there in tier A, that's probably the big combo that might stare you in the face. That's really annoying. Neutralizing Gas and base 100 Speed Spore is pretty obnoxious. And then he's kind of doubled down on it with his other two S and A tier picks with the Sneasel and the Lucario for Beat Up Justified. It's a solid start, I won't lie. It's a very solid foursome set of mons he's got there. Outside of that, though, I do worry about some of like the longevity of the other members of the team. Like, Granbull's a solid Terra Captain. I love that thing. That mon is really great. Fast Agent White anyway is also a pretty solid Terra Captain with access to last respects and being able to hold the Eviolite. I can't say I'm convinced on the Hisuian Growlithe. Rotom's pretty alright, but Dodrio and Stonjourner are, in my opinion, I think outside of like the top 4, a lot of the team kind of screams a little bit of frailty, so I would be interested to see how he pilots balancing his modes with how frail his team actually can be by the numbers. But let me know your thoughts on Yeat's team.
Yeah. Well, okay. First of all, for the Student Growlithe, like it's the E tier, whatever the tier was. Like it's not, or the D tier. Like the D tiers were ass, so you can't really take it away. But from that, but I like this team. Honestly, I forgot about the Beat of Justified. I didn't realize that until you just said it, so I'm glad I know. But yeah, it looks very annoying. Just Weezing, Toadscruel, or Lucario, Sneasel. Like if you lead wrong and they lead into you with something that, like with one of those two, and you just lead completely wrong, I guess you can just lose the game straight up right there. But I don't know. I just think I think because of the frailty of this team, not even the Rotom, the Dodrio, and the Stone Journer, like this, like every Pokemon on this team. Maybe not Sneasel because Eviolite makes it decently bulky. At least I'd hope because I have one as well. But just Toad Scroll, just hit it with a physical move. Like its physical defense is not great. It's not super low, but it's not great. And Lucario's around frail, and then Weezing, it's like got 70 special defense. It's not like taking special hits super well. It's just, um, especially because Weezing and Toad's cruel, probably gonna be in together a lot. So it's not like you're gonna be able to switch them out for each other very much with their complementing defenses and complementing typings. It's might be a struggle for this team with the survivability aspect, but I definitely think it can be threatening, and maybe just as like a little hyper offensive team, like with the Dojo, with the Stoner Journer, first of all, just powering up every like the partner's hits, and Dojo can hit pretty hard and is pretty fast, and same with Lucario even without Justified. So I think the team is scary, but a little too frail for my liking at least.
Well, alright then. Let us move on to the 9th team of the draft, which is our faithful Commissioner Brave and his migrating Milotics. Why don't you talk about this team?
Yeah, so I think this team is really good. Aside from Delphox, which I think was the best Terra Captain, Pyro, I would say, is probably the second best. Like, Pyro's just a really good Terra Captain with the Terra Blast, being stab, and then being able to Terra, and then it like gets that extra little coverage move, like for free without having to run Terra Blast and maybe not tearing. Gardevoir and Chestnut. Gardevoir's amazing for this league. We had delayed ban, but Gardevoir made the cut, and yeah. Scraggy, I've used it before. It's very good and pretty bulky with Eviolite. Chestnut, Wide Guard support, Body Press, Iron Defense, like with stab Body Press is just scary, and it's just nice. Reverum, I would write this Pokemon off, except for the fact that I've played against it before, another league, and it like almost swept me with Shift Gear when I like did not expect it to do as much damage as it does. And yeah, just Swampert, bulky, annoying to beat or to take down. Ampharos, annoying to take down. Bulky, even Dusk. I don't remember his name, but the little Dusk can
Duskull.
set up Trick Room. Yeah, Duskull, set up Trick Room. I don't know its stats, but it might be like kind of bulky because Dusclops is stupid bulky. The only Pokemon I don't really like on this team is Altaria, but everything else just is really good. Like, this is a very well put together team. I think it's easy contender for the like taking the league. Also, the Cryogonal, I do like that too. I didn't talk about it, but I just like Terra Electric on a Volt Beam, like with Levitate, is just like a nice little synergy that it has with the Terra as well, which I really like.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Brave drafted one of the strongest teams in the league, not only just in terms of composition, but just in terms of like raw stat lines. Like, a lot of these mons are like final evolutions of like a 3-part line or 2-part line or what have you. So they're just gonna have high base stats like by default. And we talked earlier in the video about how sometimes you don't necessarily have to have the best synergies, but you can just win a fight of attrition just on raw sort of base stat total. Like, he's got 2 starters, and Reverum, as you noted, you were surprised by how much his damage output is. Well, Reverum, I believe, has base 117 attack, so that's not exactly just light tapping you for a lot of damage. At the same time, though, I will say one of the weak points of this team is, while his mons are actually strong, a lot of them have 4 times weaknesses, and none of the mons that have 4 times weaknesses are actually Terra Captains. So depending on how an opposing coach plays it, they can kind of pivot well enough around his offense and strike those mons for really big damage. But at the same time, none of the mons that have 4 times weaknesses are really shared with each other. So it's like if I'm just bringing like a grass move literally from Swampert, like grass does not hit not one other Pokemon on this team. Like why would I even bother wasting a slot for that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. Maybe like the Red Room ground weakness might be a little bit scary, but like Chestnut can take those and um yeah, like you can have a lot of 4 times weaknesses, but like what are they? Flying, ground, grass, and flying, ground, grass, ice, and fairy. Well, that's okay. That's a lot, but I think I just think I think that can be played around for sure. Um, and I don't know. There's this team like even those types it's weak to. It has good resists for I don't know. Maybe not fairy, but everything else. Yeah, just very solid. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Rubber Room makes a pretty good Fairy Killer, being that it takes almost no damage from Fairy boosts whatsoever, being that it's quad resistant. So, but I'm excited to see what Brave does with this team. I can, like you, easily see this one. I wouldn't necessarily go that far to like saying like winning the entire league because I don't believe in prophesizing that far. But I'd say
I'm just saying like it's a good contender for it.
Oh well, yeah, that's fair. I would say this is definitely a strong contender for playoffs.
Yeah.
100%. All right, let's go to team number 10, which is Crizzle and the South Croydon Swords. I'll jump in. I like the cons on this team. I'm a big Meganium fan, and it's nice to see it getting some love on this team. Similar to yourself, he also drafted a trio of starters with Typhlosion and Inteleon as his 2 S tiers, and the Leafy Meganium in tier B. He also sniped one of my other picks I had for my planned draft, which was the Doug Trio. But I like the Doug Trio in this format because trapping is actually really nice, and you don't have too much access to it. And then he just kind of rounds out the team with like some really bulky hitters, like Belly Bolt, Spiritomb, Bastiodon are like really difficult monsters like KO. Especially when they either A, have very few weaknesses coupled with high stats, or they're B, Bastiodon, which is allowed to Terra out of its multiple 4 times weaknesses. I do like the Masquerade pick a lot. I think adding Intimidate to a team that already has like a combination of hyper offense style threats and bulky offense style threats is it's very powerful. Not to mention you're just adding a whole speed component there with Tailwind that this team would not have access to otherwise. Jigglypuff is obviously pretty solid for what it does. Friend Guard, and it's just generally a pretty big nuisance. And then Meditite kind of rounds it out with like just fake out support. Like I get it, C tier is not like the most desired, but it's good fake out support. Telepathy, which is very nice for like discharge, earthquake stuff. And then like skill swap huge power is gonna probably be pretty funny. Although this team is predominantly composed of, I would say, mostly special attacking mon, so maybe not so much. What you got for this one?
Oh, sorry. I like this team a lot. I think pretty bulky, which is very true. He actually like if you want to keep talking about it, I can go move because just give me a sec.
No, you're good. But yeah, this team is it's a solid contender, I would say, for doing pretty well. There aren't too many like obvious weak points out the gate. A lot of these mons don't share too many weaknesses with each other, and some of the biggest ones that would share or have a lot of weaknesses, 2 of them are Terra Captains, which I think was a very intelligent choice. This way you kind of secure your sort of weakest members by giving them the flexibility to Terra, whereas like something like Spiritomb, which has like only a weakness to Fairy, like it's fine. So that was some really good planning on his part. Good speed tiers, I would say. You know, Inteleon and Dugtrio are very fast. Typhlosion's right around the middle. I'm pretty sure it dips off a little bit after that. Because I think after Typhlosion, like the next fastest spawn might be like Masquerade, and then like the whole team after that gets quite slow. But overall, it's a solid team. I can't wait to see what Crizzle ends up doing with this one.
Yeah, what I was saying, you kind of covered everything I was going to say, but I definitely do. One thing, I don't know if you said it or not, but Inteleon is scary. Like, Inteleon I don't know if you remember, but when we played UGA, like someone had it like when they had the person who had all the starters. Inteleon just scope lens snipe shot like that does a lot of damage. It's scary. Like that alone is
Yeah.
definitely a Pokemon I was considering picking, and it can just win you games if you win enough coin flips.
Ah, yes, I remember. I remember. Shout out to Julia and her. I forget. Her Baltimore Corviknights was the team at the time with the triple starter. Yeah, Inteleon's a really strong Pokemon for this format. It's just so flexible. In addition to like being a really good offensive threat, it gets like screens and a whole bunch of other fun stuff that this team can abuse. But we've spent a good chunk of time talking about this one. Let's move on to number 11, Kyogre and Nut. I'll let you start this one because I just finished doing a lot of talking.
Sure. I I don't I this team is interesting. You definitely have a lot of ways to. Oh, sorry. You definitely have a lot of ways to make the Sandaconda very threatening. Like you have two flying types, and then the sand or what's it called, Earth Eater? Yeah, Earth Eater ability. So it definitely is spamming Earthquake a lot of these weeks, but I don't know. Just the team seems annoying for sure, right? You have Vivian Redirection with two not Guts users, but like for the most part Guts users. I don't remember what Zangoose's ability is called, but has to run Toxic Orb instead of Toxic Boost. That's what it's called, yeah. With Toxic Boost and Guts, it doesn't be annoying next to the Vivian, but I don't know. This team just seems annoying. Like they're recovering on Orthworm. Orthworm might be kind of hard to break. Rotom's just bulky and annoying. Like Trevenant can be Harvest Citrus Berry. Vivian putting shit to sleep. It's not necessarily like I don't see it sweeping anyone, but or like setting up on you and just like taking control of the game. But it can definitely just be annoying, and like there's definitely things that it can do that just like, oh well shit, I got put into a bad position and now I'm just gonna there's like a lot of situations where you could just not just lose but get put in really bad positions with this team. Like a lot of your shit's just asleep and you're like, oh well, I didn't realize that all my like three of my mons are asleep now. Oh, like or Orthworm just shed tail into something, like oh no, like it just shed tail into one of its mons that can hold a Toxic Orb or a burn like Flame Orb and just like it's killing two of my mons now. Like it can just do that kind of like surprise stuff that you even during the game you're just like, oh shit, that just happened. Like but I don't think this team is very consistent or like reliable because just of these of kind of the tactic. It's the ways it's winning the game seem a little gimmicky.
This happens to be my week 1 opponent, which I will be playing not too long after this video at least finishes recording. I'll probably have this video out after I actually finish playing the game, so I won't give away too much, but I will say that I mostly agree with your criticisms in the sense that first of all, Orthworm being on this team is really annoying in a fashion because it does function as sort of like an end game check. Like you need to make sure you don't just lose to it in the end game in spite of whatever else this team is doing. And then this team does have a few ways to distract you from just focusing solely on the Orthworm because they have the two, we'll just call them both Guts abusers. Squawkabilly is actually a pretty solid mon for this format. Pretty decent speed tier. I would say 2 really solid abilities, access to like Final Gambit, like whole bunch of really interesting parting shot, tailwind, all kinds of fun stuff in its kit. In addition to just raw offense with like Brave Bird, Double Edge, stuff is really nice. Trev is also a pretty solid Trick Room setter, Ghost type, Frisk, all that jazz. I would say my least favorite Pokemon on this team, in a manner of like, I don't think it fits like super well. I mean, I'm not gonna count the ticketing because that was like a D tier pick, and that's actually a pretty good D tier pick. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a huge fan of Dugong on this team. I feel like you want a water type because this team has an egregious amount of fire weaknesses to it, and Dugong having like Thick Thread is like really like good for that, because there's also a lot of ice weak mons here. But I feel like you need more offensive for sure. against like those kinds of Pokemon. I think that is like you want a bulky like if that was like say Swampert or something like that, I'd feel like a lot better because like Dugong does not have really any offensive potential for the most part. So like even though like yeah, I might not want to like let my fire types get wrecked by Sandaconda and Dugong, but like if I can just manage those two, like I'm kind of sitting pretty, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't even realize like it's not that it has like so many fire weaknesses, but it has 0 fire resists. Like I don't know, this team is it's gimmicky for sure. And with those gimmicks, like you have to sacrifice. It just sacrifices a lot of like type chart. Like this team is also it has some bulky mons, but it's not the bulkiest team ever. You know, like there's Morpeko, Zangoose, Squawkabilly. They're not living that many hits, and like Sandaconda, Rotom, sure, are really bulky, but if there's Trevenant, but then there's like Orthworm, which hit it with a special move and it's gonna drop. Like Vivion's super frail, and then I don't know, just like some of the mons are like really bulky, but some of the mons are bulky, and like that's a good thing, but a lot of them are not, and because you want bulky mons to have like good type charts, they can keep taking hits for your frailer mons, but that's just not the case on this team. So yeah, it's a major weakness of this team, I think.
Yeah, we'll just say to kind of wrap up this team that the Friend Guard from Pavilion is probably going to pay off huge for this team.
Ooh,
even more so, yeah, even more so than like the Friend Guard from the previous team with Jigglypuff. But Friend Guard just giving a little extra boost to like the Zangoose and the Squawkabilly is probably going to be like one of their biggest saving graces, I would say. Alright, let's move on to number 12, and I'll let you take over for this one. I gotta step away real quick.
Yeah. All right. This team is, I don't know. When I look at this team, I just think, how are they winning the game, right? Because they have Malamar to win the game with running away with superpowered contrary stuff, and they have, but like that's kind of it, as far as I see. Obviously, there's Drifloon with like Flare Boost, but even Drifloon, like it's not like 90, 80 special attack, something like that. It's not that doing that much damage, and I don't know. It just seems like because they picked Malamar first because you know Hanover Malamad's like their mascot. They love that mon, but it just seems like the whole team, every pick after the Malamar just seems like, how do I support the Malamar without thinking without thinking maybe Malamar without Terra isn't the best Pokemon and maybe has like no resistances outside of Psychic, and maybe it's gonna drop to just like a couple hits because it doesn't resist anything. Like you have Magmar and Thwacky to increase the bulk, but like you can't just rely on Malamar to win you games, and I think that's a major flaw of this team. Like, who else is winning games in this team? Maybe Girder. Although you want Evilet on Girder, you like Iron Fist Girder is like okay. I guess Iron Fist, right? Yeah, I think it does. You don't have to run that on it. You can run Iron Fist, and then like the Cloth. I guess you can run Anger Shell, but I don't know about Anger Shell. I've never used it, and I think Regenerator might just be better. So like, personally, I don't see how you're gonna win the game because this team has no. Not only because of like the Malamar being like the only thing, but the Malamar has to set up superpowers first to even get kind of strong. So there's no immediate threat. Like when I'm playing against this team, like I feel like I can just do whatever I want first couple turns and set up my end game and then just like do it effectively from there. So yeah, I don't know if Miss Mag's back or not, but.
Yep, I am back.
Oh, okay. Just trying to ramble a little bit.
No, you're good. I do agree with your points, especially on the Malamar. One thing that I really think is strong on teams that draft like Malamar and it's well, I guess there's now 2 other contrary mons.
Yeah.
There's 3. Yeah, I was thinking Lurantis specifically for this format, but like Lurantis, Scar, Superior, and Amorous, like Prankster is very helpful. Just because you get those immediate like stat boosters through stat lowering moves, obviously. Fiat went for basically the second best thing, which was drafting Electrode, which is like one of the fastest models of the format. And because it's not Prankster, like it can work on dark types, including opposing ones. So I do think it's fairly supported. I don't remember if Electrode gets Scary Face, which would probably be one of like the better moves to help get Malamar boosting, because at least if it's moving first, then that means the superpowers get to go off before the opponent's move, so it can actually take advantage of the defense boost within the same turn. But for the most part, I would say the rest of the team outside of like the S and the A tiers and like the Electrode, and probably even Girder, I'm not super high on Cloth. I know Anger Shell is basically half a Shell Smash if it gets going. But yeah, I haven't used them on, so I can't really say too much. Trap Bench is fairly solid, like Arena Trap, base 100 attack, first impression. The only thing I hate about it is it basically gets like no ground coverage that's not spread. And spread ground coverage on a team that is using grassy terrain is basically just non-existent, so that's probably like never coming. Dragonair with Terra can be okay. Surprised it wasn't a Terra Normal for Terra Normal Extreme Speed, being that it is like one of the few, if not the only Pokemon in this format that can even abuse that. But yeah, I think it's an alright team. It definitely has some surprises. It has some really good pieces, but I am curious to see how they'll work together, like more cohesively. Especially really the Terra captains.
Yeah, actually, I didn't want you to switch side yet. Electrode, it actually does get a lot of moves for the Malamar. It gets Scary Face, Screech, Metal Sound, and Eerie Impulse. Although 68 special attack isn't something you really want to be Eerie Impulsing to, but you know, it's definitely it can buff it a lot. But
oh wow, yeah, you can basically boost every stat except the attack stat. It's pretty good.
But Malamar can boost its own attack, so
yeah,
you know. It's more just for like the bulk, I think, or like the Scary Face.
Yeah, the Scary Face and the Screech and the Metal Sound will be pretty good. Some of those moves are grossly inaccurate, so might have to hold a wide lens for that. And then Electrode itself is somewhat frail, depending on your perspective.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let us move on to the 13th team, which is the Midland Marowaks. I'll start in this team. I know the coach of this team very well. He's a pretty good friend of mine. He loves Feraligatr. He was just happy to get Feraligatr. Done. Draft achieved. I do like some of the pieces on this team, the Feraligatr being one of them. I also love Torracat. I hated it last gen. It's one of the most annoying Eviolite mons that I could really have the pleasure of facing, in part thanks to you. But I do find it to be really solid because, like, Intimidate, Parting Shot, Fake Out Pressure is like, it's really solid here. That's why it's an A tier. I also like the uniqueness of some of those Terra Captains. I don't really get to see Blossom or Dedenne all that much, and there's some merit to having them on this team. Some nice little Disquake synergies there with the Piloswine as well. The only criticism I really have on this team, and like I get that it's a low tier format, is there's just too many mons trying to compete for Eviolite. There's 4 of them. Technically there's 5 of them, because they could all benefit from having Eviolite. And while I would say that Piloswine and Haunter can get away with not having Eviolite to run more offensive items, it's a hard sell to run non-Eviolite items on Torracat. Well, I guess Torracat could be Scarf, but that's a whole different story. But like Quillfish and Tinka Tough usually like having their Eviolite 90% of the time, anyway. So what are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, that's also my first impression was if this team didn't have 5 pre-evolutions, it would be my number 1 probably. But yeah, like Torracat, Piloswine, Quillfish, and Tink. Haunter, I feel like usually running Focus Sash because its bulk is just horrendous, even like with an Eviolite. So usually Focus Sash. Haunter's a good mon too. Like Torracat's a great mon. Haunter's a great mon. Piloswine's a great mon. Feraligatr is a great mon, especially in this format where Sheer Force Life Orb is going to do so much damage. But like, um, it's just the competing items is just really hard for this team, and I don't know much to say because you kind of said it all. Like that's like my it's a great team, but you know, 5 pre-evolutions that all 4 of which all want the EVLA.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough sell, but I would agree with you. If it had more like just base stats and less competition for that, this would probably be a very strong contender because there's a lot of really good offensive pieces here. But let us move on to team number 14, aptly named Rage Quit. This is coached by Gaz. Why don't you take the lead on talking about this team?
Sure. I don't like this team like at all. I know there's some stuff here that I think they can do, but it's just all like I don't know. I don't see anything of like what this team is really trying to accomplish in the game. Like it's pulling it so many different directions without the proper support for anything. Like look at the S tiers, like Sceptile, it doesn't do anything without like some terrain support. I mean, maybe this format, but it's frail. Its offenses are like 80 and 100, and I don't know. It I don't know. It doesn't have the support that it needs here. Same with the Hippowdon. Like, what are you using Hippowdon for? Giving the Cargo and Probopass a special defense boost? Like, okay, sure, but they're all slow. So they're all not doing anything. It's like Hippowdon's. I don't know. They're just not. There's no like Lycanroc that is endeavoring things and actually causing for concern. There's just Hippowdon, Lucario, and Probopass. Like on Probopass, it's a little bit scary at least because you can body press up, so you're very bulky in every sense of the word. But that's like the only real thing you can do with the Hippowdon. And then just going down the list more, like I guess I like Impidimp because you know it's just Grimstall, which is one of my favorite Pokemon to draft, but maybe it gets most of the same moves. I don't think doesn't get Spirit Break, doesn't get Parting Shot, maybe? I don't know. It doesn't get some moves, but it gets most of them. It doesn't get dual screens, actually. That's something that's like lacking. It's kind of bad for it.
No, it gets dual screens now.
Oh, it does? Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
and Parting Shot. Yeah, that was last gen.
Okay, then I think that was last gen.
Yep, it gets pretty much everything that Grimstall gets, basically, bar like Spirit Break and like Elemental Punches for the most part.
Yeah. What else? I don't like Palooza very much. It's frail and slow. And then Golduck, like, if the bulky stand is like all you're really doing here, why do you have Golduck? Like, just to cancel out that weather. Like, you already have weather. Like, you don't need the Golduck because you already have weather control in the Hippowdon. So why would you need Golduck to cloud 9 other weathers out? Like, I just don't understand like what the logic of these picks is.
No, that's fair. You said a lot of what I wanted to say. I do agree that my biggest criticism of this team is it has an identity crisis. I like a lot of the mods individually, but the overall cohesiveness is very struggling to find. And I will say that they had Pincurchin prior to, because all of these teams are after the grace period has ended, they had Pincurchin prior to making grace trades, and I kind of wish they kept it because it just enabled the Sceptile very easily with Unburden. It also just functioned as a pretty decent Trick Room, Blowmon type of sweeper. Who know? Oh yeah, they have Meowstic, but at 95% of the time probably just not want to set Trick Room itself. It's pretty fast. So I think that that shift could have been without it, and like then you would have had a like passable Trick Room mode with like Ursaring and Pincurchin while also facilitating a fast mode with the Sceptile. I agree that the Golduck seems a little bit superfluous because like even if you just draft Hippo as like I wanted a good ground type and it just so happens to have like counter weather or like sandstorm for chip, you probably don't want to use gold dust because then you're not really getting anything out of it. Like there's no prankster, rain dance, or anything like that to facilitate a second mode. As far as Veluza, I mean it's Scar Final Gambit. That's probably one of the things it's best at. This team doesn't have the bulk overall for it to pull off its signature move and the fillet away shell smash thing, but yeah, Identity Crisis is my biggest critique, and I think that will hold this team back trying to figure out like which directions it wants to go each week.
Yeah, do you know what they traded Pinkerton for? Because I think that definitely would have been a better mod. Like, given this team, like,
if I had to guess, actually, I can just look it up. If I had to guess off the top of my head, it was probably for Rotom because electric type for electric type. But let me actually just take a short browse. Let's see.
Yeah, I think. Just want to add.
Yes, they did trade it for Rotom Frost.
Yeah, which I think, I don't know why really they did that. It's like, just adding. I don't know. Rotom Frost is like my least favorite Rotom because you don't want to click Blizzard like without Hail. You know, it's. I don't know. This team is just all over the place, and it's you need to decide. If I were to fix this team, just decide which one of these like strategies, like modes, is your favorite, and just trade Pokemon to fit with that. Like you need like what you were saying, you need identity.
Yeah, I'm going to hypothesize that they traded Pincurchin for Rotom Frost because it's one less ground weakness on the team, where you have 2 Terra Captains that are 4 times weak to ground. I'm just assuming he really wanted the Levitate bonus.
That makes sense, yeah, but I still think because both of your ground weaknesses are Terra Captains, like there's things you can play around that with. I don't know. I just think you gotta go in the lab and really just spend an hour or two on the tier list and really just decide what you want to do. Because this is not working how it is right now, at least in my opinion.
Alright, well, we'll see if Gaz gets cooking. But right now, we're going to cook up something with our second to last team, the Average Joes. Walk me through what you think of this team.
I think I like this team, honestly. For a Trick Room team, like a hard Trick Room team, they did pretty well with the building. I don't really see where the Greninja or what the Greninja's doing here very much, but like I guess like an out of Trick Room mod could be kind of nice. I'm also assuming this is a singles player primarily because first of all they did ask when they were playing the game if this is like best of 3 or best of 1. So I think like that's kind of reflected in the I also don't know if they knew that Battle Bond wasn't usable in VGC when they drafted the Greninja, but like the Slowking the Greninja pick was very singles-esque. But I think for a Trick Room team, it's pretty good. They have the Standler and the Slowking for 2 methods of Trick Room. They also have the Poltergeist. We probably learned Trick Room as well. It has like no stats, but with the Eviolite, like it has the same. It has Hospitality, just like Sinistcha, and it has the same like really good support move pool for like a Trick Room abusers, which they have 2 good ones in Abominable, which I've experienced, which I have experience using, and it's definitely very, very good. And then Golurk, which I've never used, but seems annoying with like no guard dynamic punches. Other than that, outside of Trick Room, there's Greninja, but I don't really see what like Bombardier and the Fish are doing here. What do you think?
I agree with you. I like the Mons on this team. I like a little bit of the light synergies, like the TR mode is very prevalent. I like that they have compensated in some ways for a fast mode with both Bombardier being able to set Tailwind, the Prankster Shroodle, pretty sure gets like Scary Face or something like that, and then Greninja just naturally being a fast mon that can learn Icy Wind can be pretty helpful. I'd say probably like, in my opinion, that the weak link is the Lumineon to a degree because I don't see I don't even see one. There's literally one water weak mon on the team. But then I also literally have to leverage that against the fact that like I drafted Gastrodon with the exact same team comp, but Gastrodon is just light years better than Lumineon just in terms of stat lines and actual offensive pressure. It is nice that it functions as like I guess a secondary tailwind setter, but I would say the Lumineon is kind of the weak link for me. I'm also curious as to why all of their Terra captains are grounds because I don't see. Well, I guess because of the fact that there's 2 water types and a flying type. That probably is a little bit more of the case. But if it was up to me, I would probably just swap the Luminion out for something else. But that's just me. I like the Mon, I really do, but its stat line is terrible.
Yeah. Also, I don't. I guess the Terra Ground. I think it was because, um, well, at least for like the Wigglytuff, makes sense because Fairy Ground. But yeah, just like kind of how you said, they have for a lot of things that Ground is weak to, like grass and ice and all that stuff. Like they have 2 water weakness or 2 water resist for ice. For grass, they have the Crabominable, which like just how much damage that Ice Hammer boosted by Iron Fist. But yeah, they I think this team is I think it's good. I think if you can avoid all the ways that people are gonna try and like bring people are gonna try and uh, not allow you to set up Trick Room. If you can get a Trick Room in the face of that, I think this team is very solid.
Alright, and now we move on to our final coach and team of the draft, which is the Obsidian Cleavors, coached by Tiny Gambit King. And I'll just jump in. There's snow. There's a lot of snow. There's Obama snow. There's Articuno. There's Chili Reception from Slowking. Yeah, he started off with this snow core right out of the gate, and yeah, it's up there. Then he's sort of tied it together with Ambipom, who is a very solid offensive / support piecemon. I have it in another league right now, and have used it in the past. It's great. It's one of my favorite normal types. Then he picked up a very large amount of defensive juggernauts in the Golem and the Fortress, and then Quanyard, but like TRC. But I'd say the thing that really impresses me about this team is I really like the Terra Captains. I really like the Go-Go, the Arbok, and the Pikachu. I think they are a nice blend of offensive Terra Captain choices as well as like support-oriented ones with Pikachu's move pool and Arbok's to a varying degree. What do you got to say about this team?
I mean, I've looked at it pretty extensively because it's my week 1 matchup. But I think it's pretty good. I think it's annoying because it's just very bulky, and then Empom is a nice support with Fake Outs to do pretty good amount of damage. Yeah, overall it's just very bulky, and then it's kind of like outside of Empom, my first thought was, okay, this is Hail Room, right? Like this, all the mons are pretty slow. Chili Reception, Trick Room, the Abomastar is pretty slow as well. Blizzard Spam and Trick Room is annoying out of this team. But I think this team is. I think there's a strong poke. Like the A's and the S's are very strong, and then the Terra Captain's like Go-Go's the goat, and the Pikachu's nice. Although I don't really see Arbok that much, but I like Pikachu a lot. But I just think the other 4 mons are just a little lackluster. Like, kind of a problem I saw with the earlier teams. Like, they're bringing the same 6 or 7 every week. Like, Pawniard is, it's bad. And then Golem and Fortress just, you already have so much physical defense, like with the snow. Like, why do you need Golem and Fortress? Like, they don't help with like the special defense that people are going to probably take advantage of against this team. And like Fortress doesn't even do damage in Trick Room if that's what like it's for. Like it just doesn't. It just kind of sits there and then adds to your fire weakness. Like I don't know. I don't know why the Fortress is there. The Golem, I was scared of until I realized it doesn't get head smash, and then I was not scared of it. Yeah, so I think this team has a similar problem where it brings the same like 6 or 7 every week, or 8. I guess like you could do Arbok and Golem are pretty good brings, but other than that, it's like I don't see I don't see him running much other than just Hail Room like every week.
Valid. I agree with the point about the Golem and the Fortress kind of doubling down on Fizz defense when you really want some more special defense, especially when you only have one Assault Vest that you're afforded. But at the same time, he does have at least fast Aurora Veil, and Articuno, for what it's worth, is fairly special, defensively bulky, and so is the Cloaking. So, we'll see. But that concludes the review of all the 16 teams. So we just have 2 more slides to wrap it up. Me and Dom took all of the teams and arranged them in a little tier list, and you get to see what we. I believe this one is yours.
That's fine. Yeah.
All right. Why don't you give us a rundown?
Yeah, sure. I think after looking at all the teams, I might make a couple changes. Like, I might move the Staraptors, not down like the Sunny Shore Staraptors. Might move them down, maybe not like down a tier, but maybe a couple spots on the list because like they have a scary core, but it could become predictable over time. I'd probably move your team up a little bit too because when I made this tier list, I really didn't see like any of the mons are really doing. But then, like, it has the same problem with like the other teams in that tier that I thought like it has to be creative. I don't see what a lot of the mons are doing necessarily, but a lot of the mons are more like solid than say the Rage Quit, where a lot of the mons they're fine, but they're not like Rage Quit is has a very like obvious problem, and so does like the Hanover Malvads, in my opinion, of not being able to just do much of anything while your team. There's definitely some stuff you can do with like the Volbeat, passing tail glows like the Flareon. But I think everything else still holds true. I think Braves team is definitely the best. I like my team a lot in this format. Just sharpness in general. I think sharpness on a good mon is a very valuable thing to have in a format like this. That's why I proposed to move Gallade from S tier to banned, because I just thought it would be too good, and whoever got a first pick would just have a huge advantage compared, because it would do so much damage to everything in this format. But yeah, I think I wouldn't change anything else in this list.
Well, all right then. That's fair enough. Well, I guess I should have picked a different draft to do a theme, and I could have had that sharpness winning combo myself, since I was the first pick. But here is my version of the tier list. I thought I agreed with your team being a bit of a not even a top contender, because that's actually a tier here, but like I strongly think that if you play your team well enough, and in some ways, even if you don't, I think your team can definitely carry you to playoffs. There's just a lot of stats and support pieces that are quite uncontested very easily in this format. I also thought Snicker's team, with the snow mode and the primate setup, was also like really lethal. As far as making changes, I would say after actually taking like a more close look at Brave's team, because I was helping him draft, so like I saw it at so many iterations that to some degree I suppose they all kind of jumbled together. But after actually like sitting down with you and talking about it, I'd definitely move this team straight to playoffs too. That seems kind of ridiculously cracked just on base stats alone, for sure. I might move the Malamads a little bit down. I didn't really think about, because I liked a lot of the mods like individually. I didn't think about like some of the little bits of identity passive leads that they have to exploit to get going, and that cancel them down versus some of the tiers, like some of the teams in like the middle of the pack tier. Conversely, I probably would just swap him and Frizzle. That'd probably be what I would do for my version of this tier list. For the most part, I kind of agree with everything else. What do you think?
Uh, my tier list did end up being pretty similar to yours. So I think aside from like some of your like almost top contenders were in my mid tier, and like yeah, I think your reasonings for all the teams are very solid. It was more um, like just the fact that you decided a lot of them based on like just like you like a lot of the mods, so rated highly. Like it's very fair. I think this tier list is very fair. But obviously,
Yeah,
both tier lists are they're just our opinions, and like a team can like your team. I've rated very lowly, but or rated that's not rated very low. Yeah, um, but like it can do things that just maybe I don't see like the sauce of yet, and like every team like definitely has some. It might have some sauce that we just don't see, and even if you're
yep,
like rated lowly or low in this list, prove us wrong. Like I'd be happy to be proven wrong. So
yeah. I mean, definitely so would I. Like, we just coming in on here talking about mons because that's what we like to do. But it was a tight draft, and I would say this is probably one of the tougher drafts I have ever done. Like, even not counting the fact that I specifically did a restricted draft, like the tier list was not plentiful with certain things. Like getting a good fairy or a good steel type was a very hot commodity, so to say. But that's about it. I just want to thank you guys for watching. Definitely check out the link in the description below to join the Discord, and you can follow all of the action there. Do you have anything else to close us out?
I think we've been recording for long enough. I think I've said all I need to say.
All right. With that being said, we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.